I started to realize that when I opened up, the right things would drop in at exactly the right moment. And I started to pay attention to that, couldn't pay the bills, get a check from some canceled life insurance policy enough to cover the mortgage. You're like, whoa, is that a coincidence? And then how many coincidences can you have before you realize that you're creating these, that you're staying open enough to allow things to unfold?
Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to Authentic Conversations. If this is your first time joining us, I am Amarelis,
And I'm Susan.
and we gather here all the time to just chit chat a little bit about everything, basically. Susan, how are you today?
I'm doing great. A lot of travel in the last month or so, and it feels good to just be grounded at home.
Ah, well, I'm on the same boat as you. We've been traveling, and first day back home, it feels really good to just touch ground and
Yeah, and
root
touch
yourself.
base. Yes,
Yes.
and this is very grounding, conversations with people that you click with, connect with, trust, like that's what makes things feel, that's what's real, right? Everything else is an illusion or a story, but what's real is the connections that we have with others and making sure that we're connecting with the correct others, the ones that hold us accountable and keep us steady and, help us find our ground, support us, root for us, cheer for us, but also, hold space for us so that we can, settle into, hey, guess what we're going to settle into? Our most authentic version of ourselves. Yeah.
Amen to that, Susan. I mean, and this is what we always constantly talking about in authentic conversation. And sometimes, what we sound like, okay, am I repeating myself? But it is. It's about grounding in the people around you. Yesterday on the flight back home, I was listening to this beautiful message of finding your soul, spirit, family, and the connection that you have with others, even if you don't ever meet them. Like even an artist that you just feel this powerful connection to them because of their art or because we can't tell you why, but you know what we're talking about if you're watching this show because you understand the power of energy. And that's something that we're always talking about.
The
Um,
unseen, it's the unseen, so often we want to be able to see it to believe it, but sometimes we have to believe it to see it. And when you said it earlier, right, you said ground and the people that surround you, it's like ground and surround. Like, so ground yourself and surround yourself with the people who support you, who help you step into your authentic self. And energetically, we feel it. So they don't even have to be in your physical presence, just like you were saying, like, the music you listen to, what you choose to pay attention to, right? Those are all part of the surroundings that are so important in the grounding of who you are and what's of value to you and what value are you bringing to what's around you. Ground, surround, value, I don't know, all these things are just um the the necessary things to pay attention to in order to continue your evolutionary journey to yourself.
okay, so Susan, talking about the energy and discovering of yourself, like when you're going through this journey that we always talk about spiritually, humanly, being in the human being of being in the moment. So I wanted to ask you today in our show, when you, because as my mentor, um,
Honor, privilege, mentor. Okay. Yeah.
um, can you talk to us a little bit about, if you're comfortable, when did you start discovering this gift? Because I always feel like when I'm around you, you always say the right things, and you've told me before, sometimes it's not something I practice, and this is something why authentic conversation grew out of. Um, how was your journey? Like, what were the little inling feelings that came out of you to get you to discover that you have this amazing gift?
Yeah, well, thank you. I think that in the beginnings, like the way beginnings, I think back to my childhood, and there's not a whole lot of real clear childhood memories. But what I do sit with or recognize is a lot of discomfort, a lot of feeling different and not being able to connect about, um, maybe just superficial things, right? I wanted to belong to that teenage, and I never felt like it was my place, you know? And so there was a lot of pretend, disingenuous, disingenuine to myself. Um, and in trying so hard to belong or to fit in. And what I didn't realize was that, my authentic self, had I remained true to my authentic self, I would have found others who were feeling similar. But I wanted to force this square peg into that round hole because that's what it felt like. So very awkward and uncomfortable. And then, we all have these things, these moments, right? These pivotal moments where life pulls the rug out from under you and you're like, it's like despair. It's despair, but really what it is, it's an unraveling or an unbecoming of all of those layers that I used in, trying to fit in. Right. So, young mom, marriage fell apart, single, just trying to manage all of those pieces. And, it was from, I say it was the best, worst thing that ever happened to me because it was devastating. How do you function? How do you do your daily things when, everything feels like it's come apart? But the beauty of it is if everything falls apart, that's disingenuine, it gives you the palette to put it all back together in the right place and in the right space. So lots of prayer, lots of reading. It was really I always had an inkling towards the unseen. And I had some life experiences when I was young that, would remind me to pay attention to what you couldn't see. But in that moment, and I was 30, 31, in that moment, it was like, okay, we can't control anything outside of ourselves. We have to be able to recognize and realize who we are so that we can move forward in such a way that it's productive, that you're creating the right environment for yourself, for your children. So lots of reading, lots of seeking, lots of connecting with people who had similar experiences, who were just angels on earth. I started to realize that when I opened up, the right things would drop in at exactly the right moment. And I started to pay attention to that, couldn't pay the bills, get a check from some canceled life insurance policy enough to cover the mortgage. You're like, whoa, is that a coincidence? And then how many coincidences can you have before you realize that you're creating these, that you're staying open enough to allow things to unfold, not forcing, not waiting, but allowing things to unfold. So you continue, when you're allowing things to unfold, you continue to move in the direction. So it's not waiting, but you don't try to pry the door open or, burn things down or, it's just like kind of finding that. And I would say that, that was really just a pivotal time where the universe was showing me all of these lessons, and followed by the need or desire to move into my physical body and have movement and yoga. And I found when I got into a yoga studio, that was also my language. These words, these postures, I knew them already. They were in me, waiting to come out. And so that just certainly shed more light on my journey inward. It's what it is, and I'm still working. Like, I still, I don't ever want to be done, because when you're done, it's over. I have so much to do. So I would never say that, where is there? I don't know. I'm not there. It's still shadow work. It's figuring, it's noticing, it's, watching for patterns. And it's kind of become my life's work. And if we all make our life's work polishing the most authentic part of ourselves, then we're contributing to the greater good. We're sharing our gifts if we can recognize who we are. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, Susan. And I'm sure I can ask you 100 different ways that I want to answer. So I want to ask you a little bit about spirituality. So can you share with us a little bit of like, how were you raised? Were you always spiritual? Were you Catholic? Was there an upbringing that kind of like connected you to source? Because we talk about that a lot. That you remembered at all?
So I remember questioning church, not Catholic, born, we went to this small community church, and it was a very small parish, and, it wasn't kind of a regular thing in my family. So, we would go, but not on the regular, although I had friends who were Catholic, and I would go to, mass with them sometimes on a sleepover Sunday or Saturday night. You get in the car and you go. And I was always fascinated by church, but I didn't feel like spirituality was defined by a building. And I can remember that from being 13 years old. Like, so if I'm part of God and God's part of me, then why do I have to go to this building? You know what I mean? Like, so, yeah. So I did not see my own spirituality as defined by a building or a group of people or a group of beliefs, which was kind of awesome for me, because I didn't have to necessarily undo. I could just pay attention to all of the different, I still love, I went to an Indian wedding a few years ago, and I mean, it was the most magical thing ever. And, I'm fascinated by, priests and church and weddings and, ministry. And, because I like to listen to what everyone has to offer so that I can take from it what sits with me and what works for me. So, again, it's kind of a blessing not having been tied into a particular belief system through formalized religion.
And I love that story. When you read a lot about the fact that you choose your parents and you choose your body and you choose the journey. I mean, when it comes down to the point of how you're going to look and your race and what type of culture you're going to be raised, so that it can develop you into this journey. I was raised strictly very, very Catholic, and remember loving it, but also struggling with it and kind of independentizing myself. But also in my family, they would have tarot card readings, or somebody would, my aunt's best friend who raised me, she would read the coffee mug cup
Yeah,
and
tea
burn it, and
leaves, or
the tea
yeah.
leaves. Yeah. And I remember seeing all of these things that were like outside of the norm, and sometimes sort of like, but respected. Like, this person has a beautiful gift, and my aunt's friend was psychic and she could tell things. And so I kind of was always around it. knowing that there was more to just this one building. And I felt the same way as you, where I'm a seeker. And for a while, I was seeking so much to the point that I was feeling like, where is God? Like, why can't I not find him, her? And in my journey, finding, reading, said, came back to the fact that you are already made in its image and
Mhm.
you are part of it. And the gift that you have is to speak the word and believe and have faith. And faith is something we can't see, faith is something we can't touch.
The unseen. I'll see it when I believe it, not I'll believe it when I see it. Because
Yeah.
there is so much in the unseen. I remember you talk about it, so I'm thinking back, I remember studying astrology at 14. 14, I was fascinated with, birth times, dates, just, understanding astrological signs and what they meant. I just remember, wanting to, I was fascinated by reincarnation. I was asking people if the trees could communicate with each other like humans could. And, people thought I was a little bit off because I couldn't understand why, if we could communicate and maybe the trees can't understand us, then maybe the trees can communicate and we can't understand them. So, it's like just having these greater than or larger versus smaller types of thinking, something that I remember. I grew up on a farm and, I had horses and, I had horses who were, loyal best friends, who understood and, were compassionate and empathic. And, it's same thing, with relationships with, animals and pets and, nature. I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's choosing a broader perspective that includes the unseen.
And when you're saying how you already as a child, and anyone who's watching our videos and watching listening to authentic conversation on the podcast, you know, follow that little inkling voice, vibe, butterflies, movement that you feel when you are around somebody or around art or around a book that falls in your lap and you're like, why is this book keep popping up?
Mhm.
Those are the signs. When a book keeps coming up more than one time or someone's talking about it, is when the time that you have to listen and go, I really should read this book. I don't know why. And then all of a sudden you discover that it had the message that you needed, because we
There's
we want that message to be this, a conversation where you have a question and then all of a sudden there's an answer. But that's not how it works.
no,
It
no.
works.
Sometimes you have to continue to move forward, not wait, but, allow, so sometimes you'll read something and it won't necessarily mean anything. And, 6 months, 6 years later, you go back to it, you read it and you're like, bam. And you're like, wow, I didn't see that the first time. That's okay, because the first time wasn't the time to see it. Now is always the time. When
Yeah.
it's happening right now, now is always the time, because there is only now. When? Now. How? Now. Figure it out, allow it to unfold. Um, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
it's a I mean, life is beautiful when you think about it, when you sit back and it's the beginning of a new month, or it's a birthday coming around, or you are visiting family and you're going down the path of seeing like, I came from this and here I am. And there was something that was guiding me the whole time. There was something that told me turn left where I didn't
When
question
everything
it.
else said right. Yeah, everything said right. Your knowing said, take the left turn. So speaking of birthdays coming up, I mean, so the annual, right? The new year, or the new start of the birth year for you, right? Gives you such clarity on the last 12 months or the last 24 months or the last 36 months, or the last 10 years. It's such a great check-in point. Your birthday should be celebrated. Yes. Another year complete. But as you're celebrating, it's really kind of cool to think, where was I this time last year? Where was I this time in 2019, pre-pandemic? What has shifted for me? What is working in my favor?
I love that you just said this because I just posted on TikTok. I think our last video was one that I found of us talking about the new year and allowing ourselves the permission to go a little bit and look at the rearview mirror. Because when you're driving, you have to use all the mirrors. You have to stay focused on the road ahead. You don't know if there's going to be a closure, but you're trusting. And so you look at the mirror on the left to see if there's anyone coming on your side, and you look at the one in the back, and you look at your rearview mirror to make sure that nothing is happening back there, right? And how are you doing on the road? And driving is such a meditative state where we are constantly just getting in the car, turning on this engine, and allowing. And it's the same thing when you talk about creative visualization, when we talk about the magic of power of creating and being the director of your life and making it and being the driver and saying, I got this because I'm not alone. I have source with me, whatever you believe in.
Yeah.
And then I have the wheel in my hand.
I'm driving.
I'm driving.
I'm in charge. I'm in charge. And every once in a while, I look back to see how far I've come. But my goal is to stay focused on where I am right now in relationship to what's over that next hill.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being a teenager, as you mentioned, and knowing that I really didn't worry about fitting in. I kind of was just a social butterfly and bounced around everybody's garden. But and I could handle that. But the one place that I didn't feel that I belonged was my family.
Mm.
And that was really hard because I felt that I wasn't loved by the people who were put in my life to guide me, surround me, show me what love is. And I had a lot of abandonment issues. I was abandoned multiple times in my youth. And but something in me, even when my darkest moments, because I've had them, would tell me, you have to continue this journey. And that's why now I'm in a journey of trying to be there for others who have been in my place of feeling alone, especially when it comes from your own household.
You were chosen to break a pattern. You chose to come into this life to break a pattern. You chose to, overcome the idea of, to rise above the feelings of abandonment, to not continue to perpetuate generational abandonment.
Yeah. But when you're 13 or 14 living with your father for the first time, and that feeling like you are welcome in this home, and outsiders telling you, come and live with me. If you are not happy, like, you can stay in my house. And I remember my aunt who raised me, who had left me also, saying to me, after 3 days, a fish will always smell. So for me, it always felt like, well, if I stink in my own house, I will stink in yours too eventually. So I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stick it out until I'm able to be in the driver's seat 100%. I'm going to go through this journey. I'm going to cry my eyes out and figure, and to the point that the only way I survived was because of the spirituality of being in the theater world that I found, the surroundings of elders who were my tarot card readers. I remember this woman who was amazing, who would read my cards. I mean,
and instill hope. She would read your cards and instill hope. She would show you that you had everything you needed. And the truth is, Emerald, let's talk about full circle moment. Here we are, right? It is grounding yourself within yourself and surrounding yourself with those that hold space for you as you grow. Ground and surround. Ground and surround. We've all had them. We know who those people are. We could call them out. We could shout them out right now. I mean, we have the list of the people that were the most influential, whether they were 5 seconds in your life, 5 years in your life, or still in your life. It doesn't matter. It's like comes and goes as you need it. But you ground into your authentic self. You dig in, and then you allow the support network to arrive. Ground and surround.
Yeah. So for our audience, I want to share something. Next week, so the next time we actually have our podcast, I will share with you guys this journey that's happening, because it's really a powerful thing that's kind of happening in my life right now. I feel like there's a lot of closure. There's a lot of breaking the chains of movement of me growing to my next phase. And so one of them that I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I know that I'm ready because I could feel it in my body. I'm going to have a connection with my father, who hasn't been in my life in a long time, and my sister, that I will be meeting my niece for the first time. And not everybody needs these kind of closures. So don't beat yourself up if you're not ready, because I remember being in a position where I was very angry and not could not tell you that I would be in this position right now.
But of course you're ready, because it's happening. It
Right.
would not,
Right.
it's allowing itself to happen. It's not,
Correct.
you're not forcing it. You're
No.
not waiting.
No.
Yeah.
And if whatever happens, yes, I'm doing a lot of meditation, a lot of grounding, a lot of talking to my inner child, and making sure that she knows that she's being supported by me, the adult me, by the people around us that know the situation, and that if she feels uncomfortable, we're going to get up and walk out that room or whatever.
You're in the driver's seat. You're driving.
Yes. And that, because I feel that by healing this, we're breaking the chains. And I have another generation, especially that God gifted me 2 men, that I always said I wanted to be a mom of boys.
You knew. Now you're setting the example for them.
But then I realized what a harder job I chose, because when you're raising men for the next generation, it's a big role, moms.
Yes.
It's a big role to know that they are the ones that are going to take the leadership of a relationship, of whether it is however they decide their life is going to be. But they're also leaders, and they're seen as leaders, and there's a lot of pressure on their shoulders, because we've made that into the society, and hopefully things will change. And there's a lot of energy right now where we're feeling like we're going backwards in time, right? We're feeling like, how are these laws changing?
We can't even begin to open that up right now, because we are
Right.
running out of time. But the truth is, chaos precedes transformation. So this is all going to find its way through. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited to connect again next week to really, talk about how it felt. I'm excited for you to have this moment without any regard to the outcome. This moment is not for someone else. This moment is for you.
Of course. Yes. And, we share because we want others that bump into our videos be able to connect and know that they're not alone. So you're not alone out there, guys. Thank you for tuning in again.
Yes.
Please
surround, right? Ground and surround.
So we love your support and love. So like the video if you do, share the videos. We never do this enough.
Yeah. They're there.
They're there, but you know what to do. You guys are experts at that. We do appreciate the love and support. So thank you for coming and tuning in to Authentic Conversations. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.